ask you to turn off your phones or at least put them on flight mode so that you can be present with us in the moment and allow us to transport you back in time into the Victorian era. The play consists of 3 acts and there will be 2 intermissions. The first one will be 10 minutes and the second is 5 minutes long. We hope that you enjoy the show.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
Well, I'm sorry for that for your sake. I don't play very accurately. Anybody can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep sciences for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of sciences of life, have you got a cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
By the way, Lane, I see from your book, on a Thursday night, when Lord Shawman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne were marked as being consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelors' establishment, the servants invariably drink all the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often found that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have very little experience of it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, you see, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't think I care much about your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Quite naturally, I'm sure. Well, thank you, Lane, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders can't set as a good example, what on earth are the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Ah, my dear Ernest, how are you? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it's customary in good society to take slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
And what on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your parts of Shropshire?
Oh, perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
Shropshire is your county, isn't it?
Shropshire? Oh, yes, of course. Oh, hello. Why all these cups? Why the cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance and one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that may well be, but I don't think Aunt Augusta will quite approve of you being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I'm in love with Gwendolyn, and have come to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you'd come for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
There's nothing romantic about proposing. Being love is very romantic, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why? One may be accepted, and one usually is, I believe, but then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I shall certainly try and forget the fact.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, dear Algy. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven, and look, not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're made for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them all this time.
Oh, that's different. She's my aunt. Have some bread and butter. Bread and butter's for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter is too.
Dear father, you don't need to eat as if you're going to eat at all. You act as if you're married to her already. You're not married to her already, and I don't think you'll ever be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Girls don't marry men they flirt with. Girls don't think it's right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It's not as a great truth that accounts for all the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees around each day. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Sir, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I will allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by Cecily? What do you mean, Algy, by Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Lane, bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last Thursday night when it was dining in.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you've had my cigarette case all this time? Oh, I wish to goodness you would have told me. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was nearly offering a large reward.
Oh, I rather wish you would. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
Well, there's no use offering a reward now that the thing has been found.
That's rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. Hey, that makes no matter, for now that I read the inscription of this cigarette case, I can see that this is not yours at all.
What do you mean? Of course it's mine. You've seen me with that 100 times. And you had no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read the contents of a private cigarette case.
It's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. Half of modern society depends on what one shouldn't read.
Oh, I'm quite aware of the facts, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. Just give it back to me, Algy.
Oh, but this is not your cigarette case, is it? This is a present from somebody with the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anybody by that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, a charming old lady she used to. Lives in Tunbridge. Now give it back to me,
But
Algy.
why does your aunt call herself Little? From little Cecily, with a fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. Surely that is a matter that an aunt should be able to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be like your aunt, and that is absurd. Now, for heaven's sake, give it back to me,
Yes, but
Algy.
what if your small aunt, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle? Ah! From little Cecily, with the fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. Now, I won't object to an aunt being small, but why on earth an aunt, no matter her size may be, would call her own nephew her uncle? That I can't quite get. Besides, your name isn't Jack, it's Ernest.
It isn't, Ernest. It's Jack.
Ooh. But you've always told me that it's Ernest. I've introduced you to everybody as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look like your name is Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I've ever seen in my life. It's perfectly absurd to say your name isn't Ernest. Here it is written on the card. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany. Now I will keep this as proof of ever you shall deny the fact that your name isn't Ernest to me or to Gwendolyn or to anyone else.
Well, it's Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that doesn't account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Now come on, boy, you better have the whole thing out.
My dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. And it's a very vulgar thing for one to speak like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
That's exactly what dentists always do. Now come on, tell me the whole thing. I might add that I've always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed Bunburyist. And I'm quite certain of the fact now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I shall reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you tell me why are you, Jack, in the country and Ernest in town?
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation. Oh, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. That Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me, made me, in his will, guardian to his granddaughter, Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle through motives of respect you couldn't possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where in the country is that place, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy, you will not be invited. I can tell you candidly that it is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I've suspected that much. I've Bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Oh, come on, why are you, Jack, in the country and Ernest in town?
My dear fellow, I don't know if you can understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is put into the position of guardian, one is to adopt a high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone is hardly said to conduce anything for one's health or happiness, in order to come to town, I have invented a younger brother by the name of Ernest, who lives at the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. And that is the whole truth. Pure and simple.
My dear fellow, the truth is really pure and never simple. If it was either, life would be very tedious and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That's not at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. Leave it to the people who haven't been at university. They do it so well in the daily papers. No, what you really are is a Bunburyist. And I've always suspected you of being a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I've ever known.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a younger brother called Ernest so that you may come up to town whenever you like. I've invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, so that I may go down to the country whenever I like. Oh, Bunbury is invaluable and so imperfect to me. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight because I've already been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
I know. You're very careless about sending out invitations. Nothing annoys people as much as not receiving invitations.
Well, you had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta tonight.
I haven't the slightest intention to do so. To begin with, I've already dined with her on Monday night, and more than once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I dine there, I'm always treated as one of the family members. Send down with 2 women or none. In the third place, I know perfectly well who she will place me next to tonight. She will place me next to Mary Farker, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. Oh, it's not very pleasant. It's not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase in London. The amount of women that flirt with their own husbands is perfectly disgraceful. Oh, it looks so bad. Simply washing one's own linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, I want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to talk to you about the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to get rid of Ernest. In fact, I might get rid of him in any case. Cecily's a little too interested in him. It's rather a bore. So, I'm going to kill my brother, and I suggest you do the same with your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which I seem to think is very problematic, you'll be happy to know Bunbury. Man who marries without Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I married a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and Gwendolyn is the only girl in the world I'd ever marry, then I wouldn't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in marriage, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounded for the last 50 years.
Well, and a happy English home has proven in half the time.
Oh, don't be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It's not easy to be anything these days, my dear fellow. There's such a vast amount of beastly competition about. Oh, That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I can get her away for 10 minutes so that you may get an opportunity to propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose, if you want to.
Oh, but you must be serious about it. I hate it when people are not serious about meals. It's so shallow.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things really go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart, aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
Quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave no room for development. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Hardbury. I have not seen her since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come and sit here?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane. Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers in the market?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do. Thank you, Lane.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, for there being no cucumbers in the market. Not even for ready money.
It makes little matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with dear Lady Hardbury, who seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I heard her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
Well, it certainly changed colour, but from what cause I could not say. Thank you. I've got quite the treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm sending you down with Mary Farker. Such a lovely woman, and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid I shall have to give up the opportunity to dine with you at all, after all, tonight, Aunt Augusta.
I do hope not. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's quite accustomed to that.
It's a great bore, and I hardly say it is a terrible disappointment, but you see, the fact is, I've just received a telegram informing me that my poor friend Bunbury is very, very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, I wish this Mr. Bunbury would make up his mind as to whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd, and nor do I have any sympathy for the modern feeling for invalids. I consider it morbid. Ill health is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the prime duty of life, a fact I'm always telling your uncle, though he takes little notice, especially as far as any improvement to his own illness goes. I would be obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury on my behalf to not have a relapse on Saturday. I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and I want to encourage conversation, especially at the end of the season when everybody said practically everything they have to say, which in most cases is not very much.
I shall have a word with Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious. And I think I can promise you he will be fine by Saturday. However, as far as the music is concerned, that is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, nobody listens. And if one plays bad music, nobody talks. But I will run over the program I've drawn up for you if you would kindly follow me into the next room for just 10 minutes.
Thank you, Algernon. That is most thoughtful of you. I'm sure your program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I simply cannot allow. People seem to think they're improper, and they either look shocked, which is vulgar, or they laugh, which is worse. German, however, sounds a thoroughly respectable language, which indeed I believe it is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me?
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever somebody talks to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I'd like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I've ever met. Ever since I met you,
Yes, I'm very well aware of the fact, and often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I'm told. And my ideal has always been to love someone with the name of Ernest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first told me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
Oh, my own Ernest.
You don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest, do you, Gwendolen?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, but say that I had some other name. Do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference to the actual facts of real life as we know it.
Well, to speak quite candidly, darling, I don't quite like the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolen, I think there are a lot of other much nicer names. Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? Oh no. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a moment's solitude. No, the only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Mr. Worthing!
Well, darling, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe that you were not entirely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched upon.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen.
Yes, Mr. Worthing? What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Yes, of course, darling. How long you've been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. My brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What beautifully brown eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite brown. I hope you always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from the semi-recumbent position. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I'm engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you're engaged to nobody. When you do become engaged engaged to somebody, I or your father, health permitting, will inform you of the case. An engagement to come on a young girl is a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, whatever the case may be. It's hardly a matter she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now, I have a few questions for Mr. Worthing, and while I'm conducting my inquiry, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolen? Gwendolen, the carriage?
Yes, Mama.
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel obliged to tell you that you're not down on my list of eligible young men, though I share the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I would readily enter your name should your replies be what a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A good age to be married at. I'm of the opinion when a man desires marriage, he should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom has gone. The modern theory of education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any case, it makes no effect whatsoever. If it did, it might cause serious alarm in the upper classes, and might even lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What with the duties expected from one during one's lifetime, and the duties extracted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be a pleasure or a profit. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that could be said about land.
I do have a country house, with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, but I don't rely on that for my real income. No, as far as I can tell, the poachers are the only ones that make anything of it.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Oh, that can be settled later. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen can hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I do have a townhouse on Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I could get it back whenever I like, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham, I do not know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady extremely advanced in years.
Nowadays, there's no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I knew there was something. Oh well, that can easily be altered. And now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both? To have lost one parent, Mr. Worthing, might be considered a misfortune. To have lost both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was obviously a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise through the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The truth is, Lady Bracknell, I said that I had lost my parents, but it would be closer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, the late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an elderly gentleman of a kindly and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket for Worthing on him at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to a seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, a somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him, mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I must confess to be feeling somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, which remind one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know where that unhappy movement led. And as to the locality where the handbag was found, at Cloakroom and Victoria Station, might serve to conceal an indiscretion, which indeed has probably been used for that purpose before now, but can hardly be an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you suggest I do? I needn't hardly say I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
Mr. Worthing, I suggest you acquire some relations as soon as possible and try to produce at least one parent of either sex before the season's quite over.
Not sure how I could manage to do that, but I could produce the handbag. I keep it in the dressing room at home. I'm sure that would satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me? Sir? What has it got to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I, or Lord Bracknell, would allow our only daughter, who's been raised with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. Oh, for heaven's sake, don't sing that ghastly tune, Algy. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go awful right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you? I know she always refuses people. It's a way she has. Very ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we are engaged. Her mother, on the other hand, is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I'm not really sure what a gorgon is like, but I'm pretty sure that she is one. At any rate, she's a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I'm sorry, Algy, I probably shouldn't talk about your own aunt this way before you.
My dear fellow, I love hearing our relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them. Family is simply a tedious pack of people who hasn't got the remotest knowledge on how to live or the smallest incline on when to die.
That's nonsense.
It isn't.
We're not going to argue about the matter. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that's exactly what things are originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think that there's a chance that Gwendolyn might become like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algy?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man ever does, and that's his.
Is that clever?
That's perfectly phrased, and quite as accurate as any modern observation should be.
Well, I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever these days. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
Oh, we have.
I'd sure like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? The clever people, of course.
What fools?
Have you told Gwendolyn the truth yet about you being Jack in the country and Ernest in town?
My dear fellow, the truth is not the sort of thing one tells a nice, sweet, refined girl like Gwendolyn. What extraordinary ideas you have about how to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she's pretty and to someone else if she's plain.
That's nonsense.
It's not. What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Oh, by the end of the week I should have got rid of him. I'll say he died suddenly in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy very suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary. It's the sort of thing that runs in the family. Much better you say he died of a severe chill.
And you're sure severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Well, that doesn't. My poor brother Ernest carried off suddenly in Paris with a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew is rather too interested in him. Won't she feel he's lost a great deal?
Oh, Cecily's not a silly romantic girl, I'm pleased to say. She has a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention to her studies.
I'd rather like to meet this Cecily.
And I'll take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Oh, have you told Gwen the truth yet about you having a ward that's only 18 and excessively pretty?
My dear fellow, one does not just blurt these things out. Gwendolyn and Cecily are perfectly certain to be great friends. I'll bet you anything that half an hour after they've met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women call each other a lot of other things first before they call each other sister. Now, if we want to get a good table at Willis's tonight, we better go up and get changed. Do you know it's nearly 7?
No, it's always nearly 7.
Yes, but I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Go to the theatre.
Oh, no, I loathe listening.
Oh, we can go to the club.
Oh, no, I hate talking.
Or we can trot around to the Empire till 10 and...
Oh, no, I can bear to look at things. It's so silly.
I mean, what shall we do then?
Nothing.
It's an awful lot of work, doing nothing. But I don't mind a little bit of hard work if there's no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Oh, Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algy, can you turn your back? I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Oh, now, Gwendolyn, I really don't think I can allow that.
Algernon, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that.
Darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mama's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I had over Mama, I lost at the age of 3. But even though she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often, nothing that she can ever do that can alter my eternal devotion to you.
My own one.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mama, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my being. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I know. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is good postal service, I suppose. It might be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require some serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily. How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn around now.
Thanks, Gwendolyn, I already have.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, Sherry, please, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I shall be going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I probably won't be back until Monday morning. You can pack up all my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and my Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow shall be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're the perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you, sir.
Now there's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl in the world I ever cared for. What are you so amused about?
Oh, I'm just a little anxious about poor Bunbury's health.
If you're not careful, your Mr. Bunbury will get you into a dreadful scrape someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious.
That's nonsense. You don't talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.